What if I told you that the man you thought was broken, the one who's been without a relationship for years, is actually the most dangerous man alive? Not dangerous in the way the world fears, but dangerous in the way the world can't control. Because while others were caught in cycles of lust, validation, and emotional confusion, he was building. Quietly, without applause, without attention, alone. You're not ready for the truth I'm about to lay down. Because this isn't the kind of speech that flatters your comfort. This is the kind of truth that rips the blindfold off. The longer a man has been without a relationship, the more he learns about himself, and the less he's willing to tolerate from anyone who doesn't match the level he's climbed to. He's not angry, he's focused. He's not chasing, he's attracting. He's not lonely, he's dangerously aligned. And by the end of this video, you'll realize something that might shake you to your core. The man who walks alone isn't weak. He's rare. He's watching the world, calculating, evolving, and choosing very carefully who gets access to him. Because peace cost him too much to give it away cheaply. So if you're ready to hear what no one else is saying, if you're ready to understand why solitude creates men who cannot be manipulated, if you're ready to stop living in illusions and start seeing the raw, shocking psychology behind real masculine growth, then don't even blink. This video will change how you see men forever. Watch to the end. The truth doesn't wait for the distracted. It only rewards those who pay attention. Most people misunderstand solitude. They think a man who hasn't been in a relationship for a long time is lonely, broken, or unwanted. But the truth is far more unsettling. He might be becoming unstoppable. Because solitude, when used right, is not a prison. It's a forge, a place where weak parts of a man are melted down and reforged into something solid, something powerful. When a man is without a relationship, he is finally alone with himself, and that is where real growth begins. No distractions, no emotional noise, no pressure to perform for anyone else, just him and the uncomfortable truth of who he really is. And that's what most can't handle. They run from the silence because it exposes everything: insecurities, unhealed trauma, unmet desires. But the man who stays in that silence, he learns. He watches his thoughts without numbing them. He faces his past without blaming it. He studies himself like a map. He doesn't need someone to hold him together because he's learning how to stop falling apart. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it's real. He's rebuilding his sense of worth, not around what someone else thinks of him, but around what he knows to be true about himself. You have to understand, solitude strips away the illusions. When there's no one there to flatter your ego, you're forced to face your reality. Are you disciplined? Are you honest? Do you have purpose? If the answer is no, then the man who remains alone learns to build those things not for the sake of impressing anyone, but for the sake of not being ashamed when he's alone in his own company. That's why some men come out of solitude dangerous. They've mastered the parts of themselves most people hide behind relationships to avoid. When a man has truly been without a relationship and has grown through it, he doesn't crave anyone's presence to feel complete. He becomes very selective, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. He knows what peace costs. He knows what self-control tastes like. He understands the value of his attention. He's not falling into love. He's measuring it. He's not giving his time easily. He's guarding it. Because for the first time in his life, he knows what it took to get here, and he won't trade that power for a pretty smile and an empty soul. It's uncomfortable to say, but some of the most emotionally intelligent, spiritually grounded, and driven men you'll ever meet are the ones who have gone without a relationship the longest. Because they've had time to learn how to stop betraying themselves just to be liked. They've healed without applause. They've grown without being seen, and that kind of growth, that kind of silence, it produces a man who no longer fears being alone, but fears being with the wrong person more than anything. So the next time you see a man who's been single for years, don't assume he's lost. Understand, he might have just found himself. There is something deeply powerful about a man who no longer chases. Not because he's given up, but because he's finally awake. He's seen the game for what it is: exhausting, shallow, and often rooted in self-abandonment. Chasing, for most men, is a desperate attempt to earn validation. It's a dance built on the belief that their value must be proven constantly through effort, pursuit, and sacrifice. But a man who has spent time alone and learned the weight of his presence, he realizes something radical. What he brings to the table is not up for negotiation. When a man stops chasing, it doesn't mean he's closed off to love. It means he's done performing for it. He's no longer chasing attention because he understands that not all attention is admiration, and not all admiration is connection. This man begins to notice how much energy is lost in trying to be liked. He sees how much of himself he's traded just to keep someone interested, even when that interest was never rooted in depth or sincerity. So he stops running, not out of defeat, but out of deep self-respect, and here's where it gets interesting. When a man stops chasing, he becomes magnetic, because now he's moving from stillness, not scarcity. He's not grasping, he's observing, not reacting, he's responding. Women can feel this shift instantly. It's not arrogance, it's presence. It's that quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, and I'm not afraid to walk away. That kind of energy doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't plead, it challenges, and it creates a gravitational pull most can't explain but absolutely feel. This isn't about playing games or withholding affection. It's about knowing your own worth so deeply that you refuse to invest it carelessly. A man who doesn't chase is a man who values his energy, his time, and his peace. He doesn't fall for surface-level seduction. He's tuned into something deeper. He listens not just to what is said, but to what is missing. He pays attention not just to beauty, but to values, patterns, consistency. And because of this awareness, he becomes extremely rare. In a world full of men trying to be seen, trying to be chosen, trying to impress, he stands still. And that stillness is thunderous. It forces others to reflect. It draws in those who are ready for something real, and repels those who only came to take. So, the next time you see a man who isn't chasing anyone, don't mistake him for passive. Don't assume he's uninterested or emotionally unavailable. Understand that he may be more available to love than most, just not the kind that drains him, disrespects him, or disconnects him from himself. He's not running after love anymore. He's building a life so full that love has no choice but to come and stay, or be left behind. There is something profoundly unsettling to the world about a man who has healed in silence. Not because he's loud about it, not because he brags, but because his energy has changed in a way that no one can manipulate anymore. He's done the work most people avoid. He didn't distract himself with meaningless relationships or chase false intimacy just to avoid loneliness. He sat in it, he sat in the heartbreak, the confusion, the inner chaos, and faced it head on. That kind of man becomes dangerous, not to others, but to the illusions others live by. You see, we live in a world that depends on broken men. Men who can be sold a fantasy, men who will trade their integrity just to be loved, men who silence their instincts to please others. But a man who is healed in silence, he's seen too much, he's felt too deeply, and most importantly, he stopped running from himself. That gives him a sense of power that can't be taken away because he didn't borrow it from anyone else. He earned it in private. This man doesn't just know what he wants. He knows what he won't tolerate. He doesn't get pulled into chaos because he's made peace his home. He doesn't beg for clarity because he's learned to read energy without needing words. He's not reactive because he knows his triggers and he's neutralized them. That's why people who once played games with him find him intimidating now. He's not playing anymore. He's watching, he's listening, and if something doesn't align with his truth, he will walk away without explanation. What makes this man so rare is not just that he's healed, it's how he healed. He didn't post about it. He didn't perform it. He just lived it, day by day, in silence, while the world moved on, while others distracted themselves with attention and drama. He chose depth. He chose discipline, and the result, he carries a presence that speaks before he does, a calm that shakes people to their core. Because healing in silence isn't just about recovery, it's about transformation. It's about becoming the kind of man who no longer needs approval to feel valuable. The kind of man who loves from strength, not from need. When he finally decides to love someone, he doesn't bring his wounds. He brings his wisdom. He doesn't bring confusion, he brings clarity. He doesn't project his pain, he offers protection. And that is why he's terrifying to those who benefited from his brokenness. He's no longer accessible to manipulation, no longer available for dysfunction. He's only available for truth. So if you find yourself in a season of silence, don't run from it. Let it shape you. Let it strip you of what no longer serves you. Because when you heal in silence, you don't just change your life, you become the kind of man who can't be unmade.